Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Everyone should have access to the chat if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. But thank you for joining us. I'm Mina Nutbeam. I am the program manager for the course program at SAFE, also known as Stewards of Affordable Housing for the Future. If you're less familiar with us, CORS is a certification that recognizes owner-operators and third-party providers that have developed a robust commitment, capacity, and competency in providing resident services coordination in affordable rental homes. So for today's webinar, we're exploring the different ways that organizations are developing and refining programming and services that help residents move from housing stability to meet other financial goals. So this includes both unique program models and staffing approaches. So just a few logistical items for today. Feel free to introduce yourself, like I said, in the chat and share resources there. Today's webinar is being recorded and slides will also be made available. Some of the resources mentioned will also be shared after today's webinar. And if you do have any questions, you can use the Q&A function. So what are we talking about today? So for today's webinar, we're talking about moving up the continuum of basically from housing stability to other financial health and well-being outcomes. So resident services providers are continuing to develop and build on the resources and programming available to help residents remain stably housed and move towards realizing those financial goals. And CORS recognizes that really no two approaches are the same, and that there are many successful programs that have been developed by organizations to help residents move along that continuum from housing stability to achieve financial well-being. Today's webinar is highlighting some of those models and approaches from 3 CORS certified organizations, each with their own unique programs, pilots, and models they're continuing to test and refine to empower residents to reach those financial goals. So we'll be touching on some unique programs and piloted approaches, layering of staffing with virtual services and financial coaching support, and also how organizations are thinking about further integrating their housing stability and financial well-being initiatives within their broader resident services efforts. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce today's presenters. So joining us today, we have Christy Adams, who's the Chief Learning Officer at Family Inc., where she's led program development, evaluation, and practice efforts since 2008. Her work focuses on bridging research and practice, strengthening program effectiveness, and driving innovation and quality improvement across Family Scholar House and its partners. Sarah Brady is president of FSH Works, the Workforce Development Division of Family Scholar House. So she leads nationwide efforts and initiatives that connect education and employment and address barriers to create sustainable career pathways. Her work drives social impact and economic growth through innovative partnerships. Representing CHN Housing Partners, we also have Nina Holzer, who is the Director of Financial Mobility. At CHN Housing Partners, she provides programmatic leadership and oversees the strategic direction of CHN's Financial Mobility Department, including leading and growing CHN's counseling and group education platforms, housing stability and financial wellness programs, and home ownership initiatives. And then last but not least, we have joining us as the Director of Economic Mobility for Connected Communities. Edward Chen is responsible for creating and operating economic mobility programs for an affordable housing portfolio of around 100,000 units nationally. Previously, Edward administered a variety of human service programs for the state governments of Arizona and Massachusetts. So again, thank you all for joining us today, and I'm going to pass things off to Sarah and Christy to get us started by talking about their work at Family Scholar House and how they support residents to reach their financial goals.
Good afternoon, everyone. At the core of Family Scholar House is our mission, which really truly is ending cycles of poverty for families, and helping them pursue post-secondary education, and really achieving lifelong self-sufficiency. That comes with a lot of different things and a lot of different programming, but post-secondary education is at the core of almost everything that we do. We very much are a educational program with a housing component. Our housing component is very much geared towards vulnerable populations, student parents, young adults who've aged out of foster care, and really just progressing them towards education and self-sufficiency, but providing them a lot of the support and stability that they may not have through other supports at home, through their family, and really being able to meet them where they're at, but also to meet them at where they want to be, and being able to walk alongside them in their journey. And really just being able to meet them where they're at. Our work is very intentional across our staffing model and our program requirements that we have. But all of our wraparound services are geared towards that progression of self-sufficiency. And it's everything from academic coaching and financial education to career coaching and so many things in between. So I'm going to hop to the next slide and let Christy talk a little bit about our staffing model and our program requirements.
Hi. At Family Scholar House, we operate on a multidisciplinary, relationship-centered staffing model from a trauma-informed space as well that is designed to provide comprehensive wraparound services to support the families that we serve. And our staffing is intentionally structured across functional areas to address the interconnectedness of housing stability, academic progress, family and well-being, career advancement, and financial literacy, as Sarah talked about. At the core of our model, we have family advocates, or individuals might call them case managers. We are also very specific about and intentional about language that we use. So our family advocates are the support team champions, who serve as the primary point of contact for each family. They build kind of that ongoing trust-based relationships, and they coordinate their individual care plans focused on education, financial stability, parenting, basic needs, everything except academic career items. And they ensure that the continuum of care, and as the families navigate both our internal programming and external systems. So that's critical for all those pieces to be involved. They also do a lot of work with our property management. And then equally as important in supporting our families is our academic and career focused staff, who you can guess do all academic and career and not all those other things. But what we do know is while we intentionally have the two, the family advocates and the academic, in their lanes, that those lanes get very close together, and we know items in one lane can impact the other lane. So they also must work as a core team. But the academic and career focus staff assists participants with college enrollment, their persistence, and their completion. And this includes navigating kind of the post-secondary opportunities and their journeys, helping with accessing financial aid. They become very good at FAFSA applications and can sit with someone and walk somebody through that. They may help with selecting career pathways and transitioning into the workforce. And these staff members align academic progress with the long-term economic mobility goals. And then in all of those, after those two main champions, we also have the staff who, a health and wellness coach, which we know that health and financial items are intertwined and they impact each other. So having that individual focus on wellness is important. We have an art therapist who can support greater needs of issues going on. And then what we don't have on the slide, because it is encompassed in all of those, is we cannot forget the second generation that we're doing work with as well, who are part of those families, their own career goals, and starting young in looking at what they want to do. We do not ask them what would they want to be when they grow up. We ask them what problems they want to solve, but we also start teaching financial literacy very young. So the kids are woven into the staffing model as well. And when we talk about our staffing model in terms of how they deliver our programming, when individuals live with us, They must be a single parent or a young adult who has aged out of foster care or who has had state's care experience since the age of 13. Individuals will meet with their family advocate twice a month to work on those advocacy goals. Are they having their basic needs met? How are they progressing through life's journey? Because we know that they are working with a lot of different areas, from transportation to trauma to legal issues to children's issues to our mental wellness, physical wellness, and all the fun things. And then they also meet with that coach 2 times a month to talk about their academic progress and career. They must be full-time enrolled into a post-secondary pathway. We know those pathways look different and acknowledge they look different. For individuals, it might be pursuing an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, it might be an apprenticeship pathway. They maintain a 2.0 GPA, and I will say, I love that we see a lot of 2.0s, but we see more with threes in front of those point O's. So that is exciting. And then all of our kids are in age appropriate education, and people don't always think about that full span of children. We currently have 397 children in residence, and people think about the K through 12 kiddos and teens, but also 65% of those kids are 5 and under. And so they are in childcare programs to meet their age appropriate education. And then they attend at least one workshop a month. And then I feel like sometimes that one, again, is a minimum. We offer up to 30 or 40 different workshop opportunities a month. One, so that they are learning something, but two, they are getting to connect and build community, which is also important in supporting that movement forward, to feel like they have that community that can support them as they are going ahead with their academics, but even as they're saving for financial goals, they like to challenge each other. Did you save this week? How can I help you save? I just came out of a meeting with someone who was like, did you know this? You can get this list of things where you can get free. So they share those tips to help them build skills. And then they also must meet the low income housing requirements. So staff, program, and very critical. And then Sarah's going to kind of tell you how we layer all of that.
Yeah. So much of everything we do is really initially, how are we helping them make sure that their basic needs are met? Understanding that it's very hard to commit to being in school. It's very hard to think about ending the cycle of poverty for your family and really truly securing that long-term economic mobility if you don't have childcare, if you don't have housing, if you don't have those basic needs met. So much of our work initially is how can we ensure that stability and then coach them through that financial empowerment. A lot of those workshops that Christy talked about is that financial programming role. We bring community leaders in from different banks and different organizations in our different communities that we serve that talk about budgeting and credit building and understanding different career paths and incomes that come with those career paths and really having those conversations early on. So as they're progressing in their education, that they're having realistic goals for where they're at and where they want to be. Lastly, I will add one of our newest pieces that we have is our virtual support that we have. That is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And that is very similar to everything that Christy just talked about. Initial problem solving with individuals who may be in crisis, those basic kind of government assistance, financial aid type of questions, connections to other resources within our community. And then we've recently launched a chatbot, which is a really unique thing. Christy has, as our chief learning officer, has trained our chatbot to be our very trauma informed, like our academic coaches and our family advocates, but to be there when individuals really need it. So we are now accessible 24/7 to individuals via text and our website. But really, really truly doing our work when we say we're meeting someone where they're at. This really allows us to do that. We're expanding accessibility for individuals, but also making it a little easier to raise your hand and open that door to say that you need help, because you can talk to someone over the phone or you can text. And before really fully kind of maybe committing to figuring out what our programming is, you can get that basic information without having to come into our office now. And it really just, like I said, expands accessibility and provides on-demand support to individuals. Um, and then we'll hop to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about data. So one of our biggest things that we focus on is being data informed and using data to not only progress our programming and to but to also really show impact to our participants and to show impact to our funders. One of our biggest pieces of our program is, as I've said 1,000 times, self-sufficiency, but also accountability. And we use the Arizona Self-Sufficiency Matrix to help track progression for our participants. So here's a graph here that you see that has at intake, at move-in, and at graduation. There are several times where we're getting this information in between, but these are averages as people are progressing, and you can see as someone enters, they're roughly around a 2.2 for economic mobility, and as their graduation, they're very much approaching that 5. And for the Arizona Self-Sufficiency Matrix, if you're not familiar with it, it is very objective scoring across these categories, and there are several domains. These are just 5 that we have listed here that are very particular to our programming. But it really is objective. It's not about how you feel about your housing or how you feel about economic mobility or food security. It's what are you truly experiencing in that moment. And as you can see, as we progress towards graduation, people are slowly increasing. Even when they move in, they slowly increase. Housing is another domain in this. As soon as they secure housing with us, we see an immediate jump. And so much of what we do is impacted by this, but it's intentional work. Our database, we would not be able to do our work without our database, and it's a custom built database that we've designed that allows us to track individual or track our interactions with individuals, but to also show progression and to show return on investment. We're able to track our degrees, and we're able to track people's earnings and so many different things. But it really allows us to not only paint the picture of the work that we're doing as an agency and the good work that we're doing with our staff are doing, but to show the impact that our graduates are having in the community. It is really giving us real-time data as people are coming off of government benefits, they are graduating, they're securing jobs, and really just being able to move forward. I should have mentioned this earlier when I introduced us, but we are primarily headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. Currently, we have 5 campuses here with a few others that are currently in development. And since 2008, we have celebrated 949 grads. And it's just 949 people that are out in our world who have truly broken that cycle of poverty for their family. And then we've also just some other numbers from last year. We had over 120 coaching sessions, and that's enough to fill a sold-out World Series stadium nearly 3 times over. And when you take data like that and kind of put it in that perspective, it really gives, again, it gives a stronger impact. It gives more perspective of the work that we're really doing day in and day out. Lastly, I'm going to let Christy talk a little bit about our affiliate program and home ownership.
And I saw a quick question in the chat, and our database is built within the Salesforce platform, but it was a customized database, so we built everything in it from the ground up. If that helps that answer. But as we have gone along in the work that we have done, people have seen our outcomes, seen our impact from our data, and wanted to replicate what we do. And so we started an affiliate model, which allows organizations from around the country to apply to be an affiliate, and they literally get everything we have. They get our database, our HIPAA compliant communication system. They get myself twice a month. Any things we do or any trainings they get to be a part of. Our affiliate model is different than some affiliate models because we do not expect people to pick up our model and plop it in their community. We really want individuals to utilize our model for what fits best for their community and to create what works in their community with us in the background to be kind of a phone a friend, providing information and helping people with where we stubbed our toe so they don't have to stub their toe and they can progress a little bit faster. We're so excited to have 19 affiliate locations and within the last year, those affiliates have done almost 275,000 activities with individuals, recognizing that some affiliates may be only serving 10 people at this point. They're so new, with others who are now onto their second campus. Um, Really quickly, because I know we are probably running out of time. We also have started a home ownership program. We have added a subsidiary to Family Inc. of FSH Real Estate, which is building affordable housing. And we have always worked with our participants on thinking about what's next. What do you want to be? Where do you want to live? And we have strengthened the home ownership process by bringing in, as Sarah talked about earlier, bankers and credit unions and real estate individuals and individuals who sell houses and all these people to become kind of this human massive index of information and sharing it with our participants about how to become a homeowner, what to look for, where a first-time homeowner um, programs, what can they get? And we're so excited with our first couple of houses that we are going to have two new homeowners probably pretty soon. And we celebrate each of those walking into the home that they can call their own. And I think in the slide, you saw the number of homes that have been purchased by our graduates, and they love to share that information with each other. So I would think to say in summary of who we are, what we do, and to get to that economic mobility is, like Sarah said, we meet individuals where they are and where they want to be. And in between those, there is a whole lot of championing, information giving, access to information, hand holding, cheerleading, so they end up where they want to be.
Thank you.
So
Thanks so much, Christy and Sarah. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. I'm going to pass it off to Nina.
Thanks, Mina. And it's really hard to follow Family Scholar House. They have such great programs. And we have a Scholar House in Cleveland. So really appreciate all the learning and opportunity to share. My name is Nina Holzer. I'm the Director of Financial Mobility with CHN Housing Partners. Again, really grateful for the opportunity to share some information on the restructuring our organization has been going through over the last few months and share what we see as the beneficial impacts this restructure will have on our community building and engagement and resident services. We go to the next slide. Maybe. Thank you. So to jump in, CHN Housing Partners is a nonprofit developer and housing support service provider headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. Our footprint also includes Detroit, Michigan, as well as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our mission is to leverage the power of a permanent address to change lives and improve communities. We partner with nonprofits, government entities, financial institutions, and others to improve housing stability and promote homeownership in our communities. We serve thousands of households annually, own and manage over 2,500 housing units, have developed over 7,100 homes, and assisted nearly 4,000 families in becoming successful homeowners. Next slide. So CHN is a vertically integrated housing organization, and our work really falls into 5 areas. So first, affordable housing. So we develop, own, manage affordable housing or affordable rental housing and lease purchase homes. Next, we have home lending. So we're focused on making homeownership more accessible, especially for people in communities who are often underserved by traditional mortgage markets. Our approach focuses on lending products, homebuyer education, and increasing housing supply and inventory. As a community development financial institution, or CDFI, we have flexible mortgage products, down payment assistance, and again, home buyer education and financial coaching to help households be successful in that home buying journey. We have a home repair and rehab arm. So this branch of service is focused on preserving existing housing, helping residents remain safely in their homes. Our single family preservation department provides home repair and rehab services, accessibility improvements, and a whole home model that helps keep residents safely housed, improves our housing stock and neighborhood conditions, and addresses health and safety concerns. Housing and family success, or family success and supports, as it says on the screen. So our financial mobility platform uses a crisis to mobility framework to help households reach and exceed their financial and housing goals. We're a HUD-approved housing counseling agency and provide the full gamut of housing and financial counseling and group education services, as well as free income tax preparation, financial assistance programs for renters and homeowners, supportive services, homeownership coaching, and more. And as I'll talk about later in a few slides, we also lead our community building and engagement, youth development, and workforce development efforts and resident services. And then lastly, our housing solutions and policy arm. So our policy and solutions team focuses on educating key stakeholders in the public and private sector about the importance of housing stability and homeownership opportunities. We provide practitioner-based policy recommendations for their consideration. And in some instances where appropriate, we're also the implementer of those solutions. So we engage with stakeholders at the federal, state, and local level with the purpose of supporting the broader affordable housing ecosystem. Next. So again, I want to thank the course team for allowing me to share more information about our organizational restructure that we've been going through over the last, we'll say, 6 months, and the work that we're doing to better align and integrate our resident services platform with our financial mobility, so that family success platform. You could go to the next slide, that's fine. So in late 2025, while going through our organizational budgeting and annual review process, we made the decision to bring our community building and engagement program and resident services into our financial mobility department. What you see on this slide is sort of the full scope of of all the services currently offered through our financial mobility department, including that CB&E platform and now resident services. The goal of this realignment is to better integrate our financial wellness and housing counseling platform, supportive services, and efforts to engage and work with people who live in our housing. So prior to the restructure, we really had bifurcated efforts to engage residents with separate teams trying to tackle resident engagement from different angles. First, we had our community building and engagement department focused on outreach to families living in our lease purchase community, and again, leading that youth and workforce development effort at CHN. This team was also convening our resident engagement council for households in that lease purchase program, and focused on resident leadership within that community of residents in our sort of scattered site single family portfolio. Separately, our property management department was taking on resident services in our multifamily portfolio with some, I would say, light touch points with community building and engagement and our financial mobility teams. And while we've seen some resident-led groups pop up in our various multifamily buildings, unlike our community building and engagement group, our property management resident services program was not historically focused on resident leadership in those multifamily living communities. They were instead providing pretty traditional resident services. So doing housekeeping checks, bringing some external partners on site, putting on activities in the building. And again, we wanted to go a little bit deeper in that space. In terms of supportive services within the financial mobility department, again, historically, that team has provided financial wellness and housing counseling services to both the community at large. But as I mentioned early in the call, we also have a scholar house. And so our financial mobility team has, over the last couple of years, been brought in to provide supportive services for our more special initiatives, which includes Scholar House and our Family Success Program, which is housing counseling for residents in our lease purchase community. So we had some touch points with people living in our housing. But again, as you can imagine, with 3 different teams trying to work with people in our housing, it was, I would say, a little all over the place. And again, we were focused on bringing everything under one metaphorical roof. And the goal in bringing everything under that roof was to create a clear and comprehensive strategy for supporting people in our housing. So we really want to see deeper, more impactful resident engagement that taps into these many supportive services and create better pathways for residents to have a greater voice in our programming and have residents help us develop a strategy that aligns with their wants, needs, and goals. And additionally, we feel that by aligning these services with our financial mobility platform, we believe we can better integrate those financial wellness products and housing counseling services into this new resident services framework. So you could go next slide. So right now we're very early into this realignment. So I'm really here to share more about the process that we're going through. So broadly, our financial mobility department is going through a department-wide planning process to clearly define our vision, goals, scope, and roadmap for 2026 and moving forward. And we're taking learnings from this process and have started digging into our newly realigned services to engage in this sort of 5-phase process with the goal of developing a framework and roadmap for our newly aligned resident services. So broadly, our goal is to develop a comprehensive and client-centered strategy that supports and empowers our residents to thrive in place. The first phase of this work includes the development of a vision statement. We want to make sure that all of our staff are on the same page and in agreement on what we want our impact to be for people living in our housing. Next, I would say we're currently between phase 1 and phase 3, but phase 1 included the development of that vision statement, or I apologize. Phase 2 is all about documenting our current context. So with new programs and services shifting into our department, services that we have not historically provided, our financial mobility team has really been documenting, what do we currently do in terms of resident services and community building and engagement? Why do we do it? What are the resources that we currently have to do this work? What are we tracking? What are we measuring and why? What's the impact that we're currently having? Who are we currently doing work with? What is our relationship with other departments in CHN? And whose work also touches financial mobility, but residents as well. And then who are the partners that we currently have and rely on? Next, in our third phase, we're doing a SWOT analysis. So I'm sure many people are familiar with SWOT, but we're really trying to understand what our strengths and weaknesses are, what are the opportunities we see in this work, what threats exist, what should we continue, start, or stop doing, and then where are we aligned or misaligned with this vision statement that we have developed. And again, we also want to understand who's currently at the table when it comes to resident services and who needs to be at the table moving forward. In the next phase of the work, this is where we're going to start problem solving. So based off of our vision statement and the analysis of our current context, where do we want to go? What do we need to get there? How do we get there? What's currently feasible? And where might we need additional resources in order to go deeper and be better aligned in this work? And then lastly, once we've gone through all 4 of those phases, hopefully we'll be implementing. So once we have our series of recommendations, we'll make them actionable and iterative with the goal of having a strong feedback loop to check in and course correct as we go. But I would say most important, we're really asking ourselves along the way, how are we involving residents in the development of this framework? How are we ground truthing and getting feedback on the strategy? Some immediate answers might be, bringing this to our resident engagement council meetings, asking residents to provide thoughts and feedback on the model and framework, creating opportunities for that feedback, be it surveys or focus groups, and then educating and sharing information about our realignment and opportunities to engage in our coaching and counseling sessions. So I'll end by saying that we are very early on in this process and are really looking forward to being vulnerable and transparent and digging in. I'd also love to connect with peers on this call who've gone through a similar process or who have thoughts on how we can better get feedback and involve residents in this re-envisioning of resident services. Because again, we're trying very hard to not be top down in this process and want to make sure that whatever we're developing really aligns with what people who live in our housing see and want out of CHN. All right, and then the next slide, I think, is my contact information. So thank you again for having me and giving me the opportunity to share more about what we have going on at CHN, and really appreciate the invitation to present. Thanks, Nina.
Thanks, Nina. Yeah, I think this is really helpful for organizations that are maybe thinking similarly. How do I integrate these different staff that actually have similar goals focused on residents' financial well-being and housing stability into their resident services work? So appreciate it. Next, I'm going to pass it to Edward.
Great, thank you. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to the next slide, please. So again, I am with Connected Communities, and just to explain in a little more detail what that is, we are the 501c3 nonprofit affiliate of WIN Companies. And WIN, in addition to developing and owning affordable housing, also manages around 100,000 affordable units. And we provide resident services and social impact programming. So resident service coordinator, previous slide, please. We call our resident service coordinators community coordinators. So we have well over 100 at this point, and we're reaching about over 30,000 families annually in 230 communities. And we organize those services across 6 outcome areas that you can see at the bottom of the screen there, from housing through economic mobility. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So we have a corporate or headquarters team, if you will, that oversees that work. We have regional team leads who directly oversee the work of the community coordinators. And then we have various programs and support staff. And just, the only thing here I'm really pointing out is that I and my department specifically deal with creating and running the economic mobility programs for the residents that our community coordinators can help connect them to. Next, yep, thank you. Within economic mobility, these 3 programs are our main offerings. We have our coordinated eviction prevention pilot that I'll be talking about today. We have our family self-sufficiency program, and we have rent reporting for credit building. And we view these in a way as progressive, right? Going from helping people establish fundamental stability through building up assets, through unlocking more opportunities to deploy some of those assets. You can kind of picture a person's journey through those stages, even though, of course, not everyone necessarily participates in every program. And then there are just some statistics there on some of the impact we've had through those programs. Next slide, please. So with the coordinated eviction prevention program, this pilot program that we're running, the theory is really to provide a comprehensive reset of the tenancy for residents in situations where things may have spun out of hand. They could be quite a few months in arrears. Maybe they've stopped taking calls from the property management. The relationship has deteriorated, and things just aren't good, right? So we want to unwind all of that and provide a fresh start. And so we start by offering some hope. And specifically through this program, we are offering the possibility of getting 80% of your rental debt forgiven at the end of the program. And we hope that that is a compelling and hopeful message that can help us reestablish communication. If it's broken down, reestablish communication with the resident and talk more about the details. So then if they sign up, we're going to re-engage the resident over the course of the program. They're going to start paying their rent again if they've stopped, just their regular monthly rent. They're also going to invest in the reset by doing the repayment of their share, right? That 20% of the current delinquency. And then we're going to connect them to resources, including financial coaching or other financial education and rental assistance. And that process of re-engagement plays out over the course of 6 months. And so that 20% repayment is about 3.2% a month of the debt. So it's spaced out to try to be a little bit more manageable. And then by the end of the program, by the end of the 6 months, we forgive the remaining 80% of the balance. So they have a clean ledger, clean slate. They have new tools where maybe if they start to get into a little bit of trouble with arrears again, they know how to apply for rental assistance now. They have the financial education they've participated in, which have provided them with some tools to deal with those situations. And very importantly, we hope that at the end of this, we've established or strengthened, excuse me, it's bad allergies today. We hope that we've established or strengthened the goodwill between the resident and the property. But just by virtue of the resident working with the management office pretty closely over the course of this 6 months on the program and all the steps that need to happen. So that, again, if there's starts to be a problem in the future, rather than kind of not addressing it and then things start to build up and snowball, hopefully the resident's going to engage with the management early on and work on co-creating some solutions. Next slide, please. And so this just kind of shows the philosophy behind why we think this should work. This is a high-touch program. The goal isn't to be a quick solution, but a lasting one. And we build up that engagement leading to this sustainable outcome through this sequence. So like I said, we lead with hope. Hey, it's not too late. You can enroll in this program, get 80% forgiveness. Let's talk about that. So if there's a positive response to that and the resident enrolls in the program, we offer these resources, right? Like that I mentioned, the rental assistance, referrals, financial education. The resident does the repayments, engages with the financial coaching. We follow up at the end with the clean slate, and then again, hopefully we've strengthened the goodwill there. So it's an escalating sequence where we're not just asking or telling the resident to do things, but we, and when I say we, I mean, property management as well as us on the resident services side are also investing time, effort, and care into this program and into the resident and the tenancy. So it's mutual. Next slide, please. So concretely, these are the 4 elements of the program. Again, they commit to repaying 20% of their debt, typically 20%. It can be a little bit different sometimes depending on various factors. They commit to completing an income recertification if that's applicable to their particular type of subsidy and if it's overdue. They commit to applying for rental assistance, our state rental assistance program, right? In Massachusetts right now, we're only operating this in Massachusetts. So they apply to that if they're eligible, and they sit down and make a a plan with the resident services coordinator, the community coordinator at the property about financial coaching. And then, the planned schedule for how they're going to engage in that. Next slide, please. So we enrolled the very first residents, excuse me again. We enrolled the very first residents just about a year ago. And as mentioned, it's a 6-month program, sometimes a little bit more if people request extensions and need extensions. But so far, we've had 71 households, I should say, complete the program, uh, representing about 421,000 of debt eliminated through the combination of their repayment and then our forgiveness of the remainder. And that represents about 6 months on average of tenant portion of rent being cleared. So again, we're talking about situations where things had definitely gotten to not a good situation and a large amount of debt, and being able to help people resolve that. And right now, we're sitting on about a 65% completion rate. So unfortunately, not everyone completes the program, but and we want to try to figure out how to get that completion rate higher. Obviously, 100% would be the the dream goal. But for this first iteration of the program and figuring things out, we're pretty happy with um, helping 65% of enrollees successfully preserve those tenancies. Next slide, please. And so then just some lessons we've learned in doing this so far. The clarity of presenting the program, we had a lot of refinements to do in explaining in how we explained the program, both to residents and to property management staff. There is a fair amount of opportunity for confusion in the different program requirements and like who does what and then what happens. So that was a lesson learned. We are operating this program in part with some grant funding. It's not exclusively. There's also just pure forgiveness, but we have some grant funding. And so there's a limited number of tenants we can invite to the program. And at first, we prioritized just by highest to lowest arrears, and we discovered that was a bit of a naive approach, which was not successfully selecting for the tenants who are most likely to succeed in the program. And so we changed that to a more sophisticated algorithm where we're looking at who's been trying the most to pay down their debt over the past quarter and showing those signs of wanting to engage. We also have moved from doing these agreements in housing court exclusively to enrolling residents prior to court. And that is helping with making sure we can explain the program in full and the way that we want to explain it to the residents without it being in that court setting. But also it's just faster to enroll residents right away in-house rather than waiting for the court date that is set with them. And then there have been learnings around really needing some infrastructure for this program. Our property management system didn't have, as you would guess, didn't have functionality built in to handle a program like this. And so we've had to kind of build it as we go along. But if anyone else were doing this, I would definitely recommend building out the infrastructure in advance rather than, as we've done, ending up doing it on the fly as we go. So, Mina, I'm sorry, can you remind me, should I address the questions in chat now or wait for? later
Yeah, I think
here.
we can move into some Q&A for everyone. So let me stop sharing. Alexandra, were there any questions? I haven't been checking on the chat. Any questions that came through we'd like to highlight? Let me see.
There were several questions that came in for Edward, but I think he's covered most of them. There was
Okay,
sort of in comments.
gotcha.
Um, eh, Edward, I know that you covered one of the questions was around metrics on the program and the eligibility requirement. I think anything else you would add to that? I think you covered most of that in your sort of the final remarks in the last slide or two.
I would add that the program is by invitation only, and we've presented it as a one-shot program. So we didn't want to create a situation where people expected that this 80% forgiveness would be available, and then make decisions around rent payment based on that.
Okay. There's another question from Elizabeth Green. She asked about the rate of retention participating, which I think you addressed, but also how many fall behind and end up in eviction. So anything else you would add there?
Right, so rate of retention would be that 65% successful completion rate. For the residents who have not successfully completed the program, I can't tell you right now exactly how many have ended in eviction because this program is one element in how we try to prevent evictions, right? We have other eviction prevention strategies and services that we try to provide. And so it's not necessarily the case that if someone doesn't successfully complete this, that everything is over. So there's still some cases playing out.
Great.
Oops.
I think the last specific one for you, Edward, and then we can maybe, and people, please keep adding questions in the chat if you have them, was about if this is something that your community coordinators are implementing directly, or are there additional staff or other staff that are supporting these efforts?
So from the corporate side of Connected Communities, we manage the program. We do all of the tenant selection and all of the program management, and then we give the lists to the community coordinators slash property managers and say, okay, here are the tenants at your property who are eligible and who we have enough funding for. Here's the enrollment form. Here's what the program is all about. Please sit down with them and sign them up. And then there's communication back and forth and coordination with them, as well as with the eviction attorneys, obviously. These are all residents who have active eviction cases. Obviously, average 6 months behind on their rent, and so there's lots of coordination to make sure that everyone is on the same page about what's happening, and that relates to what I mentioned about infrastructure, which is having like clear communication channels and not just hundreds of emails is something we have learned and have been trying to work on. And then the other question I see there, like as I mentioned, we do have a grant that we've used to get this started, but I really believe that a grant is not necessary in the sense that, and obviously the priority is positive impact on our residents, but even just talking about dollars and cents, evictions are expensive. There are legal fees, constable fees, missed rent while the eviction is playing out, so losing all of that AR. So I really believe that with a program like this, if the numbers are set well, it is cheaper. It's going to be cheaper to just forgive a few $1,000s of rent for someone than to evict them. And so I don't think that it's necessarily a grant is required in order for a program like this to be feasible, even at a property that doesn't have a lot of money.
Thanks, Edward. I do want to open it up to the broader group because we only have a few minutes left here. Maybe just a quick popcorn question. All of you really touch on, the residents and how you're thinking about engaging residents, empowering residents. I'm just wondering if you have any additional thoughts on how you're thinking about ensuring that residents are able to reach their goals that they've identified, instead of not some preconceived goals of what residents should want for their futures, but their own financial goals. Maybe start with Nina real quick, then go to Christy and Sarah, and then Edward.
I would say that for us within our financial and housing counseling platform, we really believe in co-creating and supporting residents in setting those goals. And so annually we're meeting, so historically with our family success program as an example, we're meeting with residents at lease renewal or recertification, sitting down with them and catching up, what's been going on over the last year. Some residents we're meeting with more frequently than that, but I would say the large swath we're meeting with annually. And we're sitting down with them and saying, last year, this is what we said, this is what you said you wanted to work on. Did you have the opportunity to chip away at some of this stuff? Are there different goals or different things that you envision for your family that we should now set as a goal? And so we try not to be prescriptive. If anything, we're there to be the resource and to help them really dig into their finances and come up with a game plan to address whatever the issue is that they might have. But again, try not to be prescriptive from a CHN perspective, and this is what you need to be focused on. It's really about, again, meeting them where they are and helping them get to where they want to be.
Very similarly from our end, so many of the individuals that we serve have not always been given the opportunity to make a decision on, what their goals are, or they have been kind of led into different pathways where they may think that, their goals, small goals are what they can achieve when, we really want to instill and empower them to, have very impactful goals and very broad goals, but to really be able to open it up and empower them to make those decisions for themselves, but to also kind of lay it out for them and helping them, understand the different kind of pathways that there are when we're talking about post-secondary education, when we're talking about home ownership, and we're talking about choosing a career that will fit a lifestyle that you want to live, and laying all of those options out, but giving them the option to make that decision themselves, and really just, again, empowering them to, believe big and dream big, but then also hold them accountable to those goals through our structure of meeting with our residents monthly and so on and so forth.
Thanks. Edward, do you have anything you want to add?
Our approach is very similar. I know we're short on time, so we're very similar to what everyone said.
You're on mute, Mina.
Oops. Thank you, everyone, is what I was saying, for sharing your time today and information about resources and programs and approaches and how you're continuing to build and pilot and test new things. Here are some of the resources I want to offer that SAFE has as well, recently developed related to this area around financial well-being. We'll share some links as well in follow-up. And you can always also, I want to say, find us find us in our newsletter, follow our newsletter. We'll share upcoming course webinars there, find us on LinkedIn. And we also have a resource library where we share a number of resources as well related to this topic and others. But thank you all again for joining today, and we'll follow up with the recording and slides as well. Thanks, everyone.